Hi. Looking back at this module on the relation between music and politics, I think we have bombarded you with loads of information. We have shown how music can be connected to concrete actions of politicians, to political systems and to institutional politics. Then we've changed the perspective, arguing that every relation we have has elements of power in it, and this is what we've called the political. And we gave several examples of the role music can play concerning this everyday omnipresent power. And then we've put you on a different track again, discussing the idea that music can also be subversive, undermining existing power relations and structures. You've had 2 lectures on Theodor Adorno, perhaps gone through quite a few rather difficult readings, and on top of that we've interviewed one of the most well-known composers in the current Dutch musical world, Louis Andriessen, on the role music can play in subverting existing societal and cultural structures. Now, in this concluding video, Hafez and I will take up some of the issues that were presented before in this module. So we would like to come back to the use of music in violent situations, how it exercises power over someone else or can be systematically used to harass and discipline detainees, for example in the US detention camps for its war on terror. The issue here is not whether music caused violence, but how it is used. Not what music is, but what it can do. In an interesting article, the American musicologist Suzanne Cusick calls this the weaponization of music. And she was quite shocked by the fact how easily music can be connected to violence, despite the idea that pretends that we can think of music as primarily a medium for entertainment or apolitical aesthetic pleasures. So Hafez, is Suzanne Cusick here expressing a kind of naivety that she only thinks of music as mere entertainment, or is it more or less common knowledge that music can be used in violent situations, is used in violent situations to harass, to humiliate people or whatever else?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question. I'd be quite careful calling Suzanne Cusick naive. However, I really understand her shock, because when we think about music, the first thing we think about is that it's a rather innocuous or harmless phenomenon, right? We don't immediately connect it with violence, with weaponization, but using it as a weapon. And I think many of us, before all the horrible reports from Guantanamo Bay, didn't associate music with this violence and weaponization. However, if we go back to Nazi Germany, actually there, music was often used to humiliate, to oppress detainees. And I think Dachau was a horrible example where music was actually integrated in the daily life of detainees. So they had to wake up with music, they had to do forced labor with music, and it actually was the case that they had to sing along with all these, with the music, and in case they didn't know the lyrics or forgot the lyrics, they were actually punished. So already doing forced labor is a punishment, and then the music was an extra punishment.
But they had to sing specific songs.
They had to sing all these specific songs which were in line with, let's call it, Nazi ideology, which was also, the lyrics in themselves were also a form of humiliation, right? Because they were quite opposed to the privileges of Dachau.
So they were singing the songs of the oppressor, actually.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. So those are already horrible examples of how music, and what you said is quite true, all kinds of music can be used as a weapon. Now we have the reports of Guantanamo Bay where heavy metal was played very loud to disturb the daily routine of prisoners, which is one of the most horrible ways you can torture someone. It's just to take away all form of biorhythm. So that was also an example.
I heard they also played like Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Which if you play it repeatedly for 24 hours, that leads to complete disorientation.
That's the word. It's disorientation, and that can be achieved by any form of music. But let me just try to shift the perspective a little bit, because now we're talking about music as a weapon. What is, I think, also interesting is this idea that when oppressors invade a country, one of the first things they tend to target is the music that is played there. For example, traditional music. So when the Islamists ran over the north of Mali, one of the first things they did was ban Western music, but also traditional music that was being played there. Why, Marcel, do you think that oppressors, for example in Mali, but also in Iran and a lot of other examples, why do these oppressors target music?
Yeah, so first we were talking about how music can be used by the ones in power,
yes,
to somehow discipline or humiliate others.
Mm.
Now actually we're talking more about the subversive role that music can play. So perhaps these people, the new ones who are in power, so the Islamitic guys in the north of Mali, they are somehow afraid of the music, so what it can do. It even could take me back to Plato, who also warned for the bad things that music can do, how it can influence in a negative way the mind, the body, and the soul. So perhaps these people, you could even say that these people take music more serious in a certain way than people in the West do, where we tend to think, as Suzanne Kusik expressed, to regard it more as mere entertainment, whereas they see that music has a much more important role to play in a society. Now this can be, on the one hand, because of the lyrics, but it can also be like because music is made for dancing or for singing, that it takes you away from the religious contemplation that they want people to do, to practice. So what actually this example shows is the power of music, and second, the function and role that music, the different roles and functions that music can play in contemporary societies. Now, Hafez starts playing a blues now, and it's not so long ago that we in the Western world banned the blues because it was going against the norms and values of the ones that were in power at that time.